What if you're easier to manipulate than you think? Not because you're weak, unintelligent, or naive, but because every human being has emotional needs that can be used against them. You want to be liked, you want to be understood, you want certainty when things feel uncertain, and when someone discovers exactly what you care about, they may not need to control you directly. They only need to understand which emotional button to press. The unsettling part is that manipulation rarely feels like manipulation while it's happening. It can feel like love, concern, advice, attention, even friendship. So today, we're going to look beneath the surface of dark psychology and uncover the psychological vulnerabilities that can make almost anyone easier to influence. Before we go deeper, understand one important distinction. Influence and manipulation are not the same thing. Influence can be transparent. Someone can give you information, explain their reasons, and allow you to make your own decision. Manipulation is different. It often hides the real intention behind the interaction. Instead of giving you freedom to choose, it quietly changes the emotional conditions around your choice. You may still believe you're deciding for yourself, but the decision has been engineered by fear, guilt, pressure, confusion, or the need for approval. That's why the most dangerous manipulation isn't the kind you immediately recognize. It's the kind that makes you believe the idea came entirely from you. The first psychological weakness manipulators can exploit is your need for approval. Humans are social creatures, and being rejected can feel surprisingly painful. That's why a person who knows you desperately want to be accepted can gain enormous influence over your behavior. They don't necessarily have to threaten you. They can simply withdraw approval. Suddenly, you start wondering whether they're disappointed in you. You reconsider your opinion. You soften your boundary. You apologize for something you didn't actually do wrong. And eventually, their approval becomes a reward you're constantly trying to earn. The manipulation happens when their acceptance becomes more important to you than your own judgment. Think about what happens when someone suddenly becomes colder toward you. You may immediately ask yourself, "What did I do?" That question seems harmless, but it can become a psychological trap. If you repeatedly change your behavior just to restore someone's warmth, you've taught them something important. Withdrawal works on you. They don't need to argue. They don't need to explain. They simply remove attention, affection, or approval and wait for you to come back. The solution isn't becoming indifferent to everyone. It's learning to tolerate the possibility that someone may disagree with you, misunderstand you, or even dislike your decision. Your need to be accepted should never become someone else's remote control. The second vulnerability is emotional reactivity. Manipulation becomes easier when someone can predict how quickly you'll react. Anger, fear, jealousy, guilt, excitement. These emotions can all narrow your thinking when they become intense enough. A manipulator may deliberately provoke one of them because they know your first reaction will be easier to influence than your calm judgment. Imagine receiving a message that instantly makes you angry. You respond immediately. 10 minutes later, you realize you said things you didn't mean. The message may have been designed to create exactly that reaction. The more predictable your emotional responses become, the easier they are to trigger. And sometimes, the most powerful defense is simply refusing to react on someone else's timetable. This is why the pause is so powerful. When something triggers you, you don't have to answer immediately. You don't have to defend yourself immediately. You don't even have to decide immediately. A short period of emotional distance allows the brain to move from reaction toward evaluation. Ask yourself, what exactly happened? What am I feeling? What does this person want from me right now? And most importantly, would I make the same decision if I were completely calm? That final question can expose manipulation surprisingly quickly, because manipulation often depends on urgency. The moment you slow the interaction down, the psychological pressure can lose much of its strength. The third vulnerability is guilt, and guilt can be one of the quietest forms of psychological pressure. A manipulator doesn't always need to prove that they're right. Sometimes they only need to make you feel like a bad person for disagreeing with them. You raise a reasonable concern, and suddenly the conversation becomes about everything they've supposedly sacrificed for you. You say no to a request, and they remind you of all the times they helped you. You establish a boundary, and they act as though you've betrayed them. Notice what happened. The original issue disappeared. Now you're defending your character instead of discussing their behavior. That's how guilt can redirect an entire conversation without appearing aggressive. The defense against guilt manipulation is surprisingly simple. Return to the original issue. If someone says, "After everything I've done for you, this is how you treat me," you don't have to spend 20 minutes proving that you're grateful. You can acknowledge what they've done and still discuss the behavior that concerns you. Two things can be true at the same time. Someone may have helped you in the past, and they can still be wrong about something happening now. Gratitude does not create unlimited access to your decisions. A favor is not a lifetime contract. When you understand that, guilt becomes much less effective as a control mechanism. The fourth and more serious pattern is gaslighting. Gaslighting involves repeated attempts to make someone doubt their own memory, perception, or understanding of events. One disagreement isn't automatically gaslighting. People remember things differently, but imagine a repeated pattern. You clearly remember what happened. They insist it never happened. You describe how something made you feel. They tell you you're imagining it. You bring up a specific behavior, and somehow you're accused of being too sensitive for noticing it. Over time, the problem isn't just the disagreement. The deeper problem is that you begin distrusting your own perception. And once you stop trusting your own judgment, another person can start becoming the authority on your reality. That's why protecting your sense of reality matters. When an important situation becomes confusing, slow down and document what actually happened. Keep relevant messages. Write down important conversations while they're still fresh in your mind. Speak with people you trust and ask them for perspective, not permission to think. And don't assume that confidence equals truth. Someone can speak with absolute certainty and still be completely wrong. One of the most dangerous psychological mistakes is surrendering your judgment simply because another person expresses theirs more aggressively. Confidence is not evidence. Repetition is not evidence. And someone's refusal to acknowledge an event does not automatically erase the event. The fifth psychological mechanism is intermittent reinforcement. In simple terms, unpredictable rewards can create unusually strong attachment. Imagine someone who gives you intense attention one day and almost none the next. Then suddenly, they return with warmth, affection, praise, or excitement. Because you never know when the positive moment will arrive, you start paying even more attention. You wait for the next reward. You replay the good moments. You become invested in getting that version of the person back. This pattern can appear in relationships, friendships, workplaces, and online interactions. The danger isn't simply that attention changes, it's that unpredictability can make you chase attention much harder than consistent attention ever would. The way to recognize this pattern is to stop judging a relationship by its best moments. Ask a different question: what is the overall pattern? Anyone can create an unforgettable good moment. The more revealing information is what happens between those moments. Is there consistency, respect, predictability? Can you communicate when something goes wrong? Or are you repeatedly moving between emotional highs and lows, waiting for the next moment of affection? Healthy connection doesn't require you to constantly earn basic respect. If someone's kindness appears mainly when they want something from you, that's not simply inconsistency. It may be a pattern worth examining very carefully. The sixth vulnerability is fear of uncertainty. Humans dislike incomplete information, and that discomfort can make us surprisingly easy to influence. A manipulator may not even need to make a direct threat. They can simply imply that something bad might happen. You don't want to make me angry. You might regret this. Things could become difficult for you. The consequence remains vague, but your imagination completes the threat. Now you're not responding to an actual event. You're responding to a possibility you've created in your own mind. That's why uncertainty can be more powerful than a clear consequence. When you don't know exactly what will happen, anxiety starts making decisions for you. The antidote is clarity. Ask direct questions. What exactly will happen? What evidence supports that prediction? What is the actual consequence? And what am I simply imagining? Separating facts from assumptions can dramatically reduce psychological pressure. Fear thrives in ambiguity. Clarity forces ambiguity into the open. And sometimes, once you ask a simple question, you discover that the threat was never as powerful as it felt inside your head. This doesn't mean ignoring genuine danger. It means refusing to let vague fear make decisions without evidence. The goal isn't to become fearless. The goal is to make sure fear is responding to reality, not inventing it. The seventh vulnerability is the need to over-explain yourself. When someone challenges your boundary, your first instinct may be to give them a complete explanation so they finally understand. But notice what happens when you provide too much information. Every explanation becomes another point they can debate. You say why you can't do something, and they solve your reason. You explain why something hurt you, and they argue with your interpretation. You clarify your boundary, and they negotiate every word. Eventually, you aren't communicating anymore. You're defending your right to make a decision. That's why a simple statement can sometimes be psychologically stronger than a long explanation. No, that doesn't work for me. Doesn't require a courtroom defense. This doesn't mean communication is bad. Healthy people explain themselves because they want mutual understanding. The difference is what happens when the other person refuses to accept your answer. If you have explained yourself clearly and they continue demanding increasingly detailed justification, you may be watching a negotiation disguised as a conversation. You don't need to convince someone that your boundary is reasonable before you're allowed to have it. Boundaries aren't mathematical proofs. They're decisions about what you will and will not participate in. Once you understand that, you become much harder to pull into endless arguments designed to exhaust your resistance. The eighth vulnerability is social pressure. People often assume they make decisions independently, but the presence of a group can change behavior dramatically. If everyone around you believes something, disagreeing suddenly feels risky. You may laugh at something you don't find funny, agree with an opinion you don't actually hold, stay silent when you should speak, or support a decision simply because nobody else seems willing to challenge it. Manipulation becomes easier when a person can convince you that everyone else already agrees. The psychological message is subtle. If you're the only one resisting, maybe you're the problem. But popularity and truth are not the same thing. A crowd can create confidence without creating correctness. One of the strongest defenses against social manipulation is learning to tolerate being the person who asks an uncomfortable question instead of immediately asking, "What does everyone think?" Ask, "What do I actually think?" Then examine the evidence independently. You don't need to become rebellious for the sake of being rebellious. You simply need enough psychological independence to disagree without collapsing. Manipulators often benefit when you fear isolation more than you fear making the wrong decision. Once you can tolerate temporary disapproval, the social pressure becomes much weaker. You stop asking the group for permission to think. The ninth vulnerability is our tendency to trust perceived authority. Titles, confidence, expensive clothing, professional environments, impressive vocabulary, and certainty can all create the appearance of expertise. But appearance and competence are not the same thing. Someone can sound extremely knowledgeable while offering terrible advice. They can speak with confidence while knowing very little. Dark psychology often takes advantage of this shortcut by creating an image of authority before earning trust. Once you believe someone is an expert, you may stop evaluating their claims as critically. You don't necessarily become less intelligent. You simply outsource your judgment to someone who appears more certain than you feel. So when someone presents themselves as an authority, separate the person from the claim. Ask, what is the evidence? Can the claim be independently verified? Does their expertise actually apply to this specific subject? And are they willing to admit uncertainty? Genuine expertise doesn't require pretending to know everything. In fact, one of the strongest signs of intellectual honesty is the ability to say, "I don't know." The more someone demands unquestioning trust, the more carefully you should examine what they're asking you to believe. Respect expertise, but don't surrender your ability to think. The 10th pattern is intense emotional acceleration, sometimes associated with love bombing. The key isn't simply receiving affection. Healthy people can be enthusiastic, generous, and emotionally expressive. The warning sign is when extraordinary attention, praise, intimacy, or promises appear extremely quickly and create pressure to form a deep bond before genuine trust has had time to develop. Someone may make you feel uniquely understood almost immediately. They may talk about an unusually special connection before they actually know you. And because intense attention feels good, your brain may begin rewarding the relationship before you've gathered enough information about the person. The defense isn't rejecting affection, it's slowing down the timeline. Let actions accumulate before giving someone enormous emotional trust. Watch how they behave when they don't get what they want. Watch how they respond to your boundaries. Watch whether their kindness remains consistent after the excitement disappears. Anyone can create an intense first impression. Character becomes visible over time. That's one of the most important principles in recognizing manipulation. Don't judge someone only by how they make you feel in their best moments. Observe how they behave when they are disappointed, challenged, ignored, or told no. The 11th and especially dangerous pattern is isolation. Manipulation becomes easier when one person's version of reality becomes the only version you hear. A controlling individual may slowly criticize your friends, question your family's intentions, create conflicts between you and other people, or make outside perspectives seem untrustworthy. The goal may not always be obvious, but gradually, your support network becomes smaller. And when you're confused, you have fewer people available to challenge the story you're being told. Isolation doesn't have to look like locking someone in a room. Sometimes it looks like making every outside relationship feel unsafe until you voluntarily stop reaching out. That's why healthy outside perspectives matter. If someone consistently tells you that nobody else understands you, that everyone is against you, or that only they truly know what's happening, pause. A healthy relationship doesn't require you to abandon every other source of perspective. Talk to trusted people, listen to different viewpoints, compare what you're being told with observable behavior. Isolation narrows the information available to your brain, and narrowed information makes manipulation easier. You don't need everyone to agree with you. You simply need enough psychological independence that another person's story isn't the only story you have access to. But here's the part many people get wrong. Intelligence does not make you immune to manipulation. In some situations, intelligence can even give you more sophisticated ways to rationalize what you desperately want to believe. You can explain away warning signs. You can create elaborate reasons for someone's behavior. You can tell yourself that the situation is temporary, that you misunderstood, or that your patience will eventually change the person. The problem isn't a lack of intelligence. It's emotional investment. When you desperately want a particular conclusion to be true, your mind becomes remarkably creative at defending it. That's why self-awareness matters more than simply being clever. So how do you become harder to manipulate? Start by creating space between what happens to you and what you do next. Don't let someone else's urgency become your urgency. Don't let their anger become your anger. Don't let their disappointment automatically become your guilt. And don't confuse someone's emotional reaction with proof that you've done something wrong. The moment you can observe an emotion without immediately obeying it, your psychological freedom begins to grow. You don't need to become cold. You don't need to become suspicious of everyone. You simply need enough awareness to recognize when someone is trying to turn your emotions into instructions. Then practice one simple psychological habit. Observe patterns instead of isolated moments. One strange conversation doesn't define a person. One argument doesn't prove manipulation. One uncomfortable interaction isn't automatically toxic. But repeated patterns tell a different story. Does this person repeatedly punish boundaries? Repeatedly create guilt? Repeatedly deny obvious behavior? Repeatedly alternate affection with rejection? Repeatedly make you question yourself? Patterns are more informative than promises because behavior repeated over time reveals what someone actually does, not what they say they intend to do. The goal isn't to become paranoid, it's to become observant. And this brings us to the deepest lesson of dark psychology. The easiest person to manipulate is often the person who doesn't know what they need. If you desperately need approval, approval controls you. If you desperately need certainty, uncertainty controls you. If you desperately need someone to stay, the fear of losing them controls you. If you desperately need to be right, conflict controls you. Your vulnerabilities become psychological leverage when you refuse to acknowledge them. But once you understand your own emotional needs, they become much harder to use against you. Self-awareness doesn't eliminate vulnerability. It makes vulnerability visible. You also don't need to manipulate the manipulator back. That's an important distinction. The goal isn't to become more ruthless than the person trying to control you. The goal is to become less controllable. You don't win by creating a bigger psychological game. You win by refusing to play games that violate your values. You can walk away from unnecessary arguments. You can say no without hostility. You can ask questions without becoming defensive. You can leave situations where your boundaries are repeatedly ignored. And sometimes the most powerful response isn't a clever psychological counterattack. It's simply becoming unavailable for manipulation. So ask yourself one final question. What emotional button could someone press to make you abandon your own judgment? Is it approval, fear, guilt, loneliness, the need to be understood, the fear of rejection? Whatever your answer is, that isn't a weakness you need to be ashamed of. It's a vulnerability you need to understand. Because the moment you recognize the button, someone else loses the ability to press it without your awareness. You don't become powerful by controlling everyone around you. You become powerful when your decisions no longer depend on someone else's ability to control your emotions. And perhaps that's the deepest truth about dark psychology. The strongest defense isn't learning how to manipulate people. It's becoming someone who is increasingly difficult to manipulate.